Hey everyone, welcome in. I'm echohack, and this is your Necromancer Bone Spear guide for the Diablo 4 launch. For the last 2 weeks, I've played a review version of Diablo 4, which includes the full game, bringing my total play time up to nearly 1,000 hours. This guide will cover in detail every aspect of leveling the Necromancer from 1 to 50, including insights from the endgame. I have a published version of this guide up on Maxroll as well, so you'll be able to follow along on your second monitor or phone as you play the game. I'm confident that this build is one of the best, if not the #1 best build for any class at Diablo 4 launch. Unfortunately, there was a significant nerf to the Infinite Blood Mist Corpse Explosion build since the open beta. So if you're counting on that one, then you might pick this one up instead. A quick note, by the way, about spoilers. There won't be any spoilers in this guide, so if you're hoping to save the story for a first experience, then don't worry, no spoilers in here. You don't have to click away. Finally, you'll see these helpful skill cards throughout the video. So if you're unfamiliar with a skill, then you can read its effects right here. With the Spear of Bone in your hand, nothing can stand in your way. Bone Spear pierces all enemies it hits. Then it breaks apart when it collides with an object, reflecting back 3 shards of shrapnel. This incredibly strong skill alone allows you to snipe enemies, chase and defeat treasure goblins, defeat bosses, and do sufficient area of effect damage to demolish anything in the game, even on World Tier 2 Veteran and even into the early endgame. Terrifyingly powerful on its own? Yes. But this build guide equips you with every utility skill and damage increase to take the Bone Spear Necromancer build to its absolute limits. Even better, we won't need to rely on an army of useless skeletons to help us out. We quickly sacrifice these minions for focusing all of our power through critical strike chance with bone skills. The satisfying part of this build's leveling experience is that it does not depend on any random legendary drops. Making use of the Codex of Power is enough to empower your build, but if you find some key aspects during your journey, you can further double or triple your damage. Now let's take a quick overview at the skills that we're going to use. First up is Bone Splinters. Bone Splinters is a fast and easy skill to start off our build, giving us decent essence generation. Even at higher levels, this synergizes with other bone skills and aspects quite well, and it will be our primary source of generation for a long time. Bone Spear will be our main skill, and it hits enemies in 2 ways. First, we aim and we snipe enemies with the primary hit for massive damage. Second, when the Bone Spear hits an object with collision, it breaks into 3 pieces and reflects back towards us. Understanding these 2 different aspects of the damage is very important for getting really detailed and maximizing your damage. The second damage component can also make positioning important when fighting elites or bosses. Try to get a boss or the elite in a corner or next to a wall or a pillar and fire the Bone Spear such that all 3 reflected projectiles hit the same enemy. This will dramatically increase your DPS on single targets and makes taking down even the toughest enemies simple and easy. Later on, we'll take an upgrade that increases the number of reflected shards, making it deal a crazy amount of damage. Corpse Explosion is our primary method of gaining essence with this build, strangely enough. This is because we create a huge amount of extra corpses with hewed flesh. Even so, Corpse Explosion by itself does good damage, so we can invest more points here to kill 2 demons with 1 corpse. Blood Mist helps us escape dangerous situations by becoming immune on use, granting you complete invulnerability to nearly every effect in the game. We only use this as a safety net, so taking additional points in it is kind of a waste. Corpse Tendrils may be the best source of crowd control in Diablo 4. It slows, stuns, applies vulnerable, and it pulls every monster, except bosses, into a single space so that all of our AoE damage becomes infinitely more effective. If enemies are nearby, you should always cast this ability on cooldown to trigger the maximum amount of stuns possible. Even better, you can refill your essence quickly using the resource aspect of the Umbral, turning this skill into an absolutely insane source of essence. Even on bosses, this increases the stagger bar dramatically, so always make sure that you cast this on cooldown. Now, Bone Storm is our final, and it's a bit of an odd skill. We actually don't care too much about the damage it does, but we do care about the damage reduction and the plus 20% critical strike chance. Later in the build, this helps smooth over important effects that rely on critical strikes actually connecting. All right, now let's break down the skill tree and leveling progression point by point. First, we need to unlock our basic skill and its enhancement. During the first few levels, your skeletons help to absorb damage and put out some DPS on their own. We use bone splinters to apply single and multi-target damage while generating essence. So at level 2, we'll go ahead and unlock bone splinters, then level 3, enhanced bone splinters. Now it's time to invest in Bone Spear. Ensure that you take Supernatural Bone Spear right away for the extra vulnerable, and your damage will ascend even higher than the high heavens themselves. Don't forget about the second upgrade, Paranormal Bone Spear, however, because once we complete Ghoul Run Slums, we gain access to the Splintering Offensive legendary aspect, at which point we will swap upgrades to use the more effective Paranormal upgrade. At level 4, put 1 point into Bone Spear, level 5, Enhanced Bone Spear, level 6, Supernatural Bone Spear, and level 7, another point into Bone Spear. Alright, now let's move further down the tree. But first, open up your Book of the Dead and sacrifice your Skeletal Warriors Skirmishers. When you unlock them, you can also go ahead and sacrifice your Skeletal Mages Cold as well. This is going to rocket ship our damage up even further. Then we take only 1 point into Blood Mist, and we'll go ahead and pick up our Corpse Explosion. Finally, we top out our Bone Spear to 5 out of 5 points for maximum damage. So at level 8, we pick up 1 point into Blood Mist, level 9, Corpse Explosion, level 10, Enhanced Corpse Explosion, level 11 is Plagued Corpse Explosion, and level 12, 13, and 14 will max out Bone Spear. Do you have too much essence now? No? Okay, well let's change that. Now we need to pump up our essence generation by grabbing Grim Harvest and Hewed Flesh. Then we pick up Corpse Tendrils for the crowd control. And by the way, traveling to Champion's Demise for the resource aspect of the Umbral will turn the Corpse Tendril skill into a crazy amount of essence as well. So level 15, 16, and 17, we pick up Grim Harvest. Level 18, Hewed Flesh. Level 19, Corpse Tendrils. Level 20, Enhanced Corpse Tendrils. And level 21, Plagued Corpse Tendrils. Next, we're going to pick up the Bone Passives. The Bone Passives will skyrocket our damage and nearly guarantee critical strikes 100% of the time. After that, Standalone and Memento Mori will reward us for sacrificing our minions even more. Make sure that you use your Golem after you unlock it at level 25, and eventually you'll sacrifice your Iron Golem when you unlock it. So at level 22, level 23, and level 24, you'll put points into Serration. Level 25 through 27, Compound Fracture. Level 28, 29, and 30, Evulsion. Level 31, Standalone. Level 32, 33, and 34, Memento Mori. All right, now we're level 35, and everybody knows what that means. We unlock our Key Passive. The Key Passive gives a powerful boost to our already insane damage output. In fact, Ossified Essence may be the strongest key passive in the entire game, and it will continue to scale even as you gain more gear and more levels. So at level 35, put 1 point into Ossified Essence. This is really important, don't miss this one. Now, next we're going to take our ultimate, Bone Storm, and we start pumping our maximum essence and essence generation as high as possible. For long fights, by the way, it's better to prioritize regaining essence to maximize our damage potential due to Ossified Essence and Serration. But also don't be afraid to nuke down an elite or a boss if you have them tucked nicely into a corner in order to benefit from the Bone Spear Shard reflections. So at level 36, we take Bone Storm. Level 37, we take Prime Bone Storm. Level 38 is Supreme Bone Storm. Level 39, 40, 41, and 42 will max out Corpse Explosion. Now we're going to do some really crazy damage with Corpse Explosion. Level 43, Unliving Energy. 44, 45, 46, Imperfectly Balanced to max that out at 3 out of 3 points. 47 and 48, we're going to max out Hewed Flesh with 2 more points. 49, we'll take 1 point into Necrotic Carapace. And at level 50, Paragon levels begin. Now, as you go through Sanctuary, you'll actually get some extra skill points from Renown. And if you do have a few extra skill points here, this is how you allocate those. So Renowns 1 and 2, you'll pump that into Necrotic Carapace. 3, 4, and 5 will go into Fueled by Death. 6 and 7 will go into Unliving Energy. 8 and 9 will go into Standalone. And Renown number 10 will go into Death's Reach. Now, one of the cool things about Diablo 4 is there's actually many different ways to play the game, and we have a more advanced setup for you here with Bone Prison. Now, targeting corpses with Corpse Explosion on mouse and keyboard requires pixel perfect accuracy. However, with Bone Prison, we can take advantage of our ability to be more positionally accurate with the mouse instead of using auto target with a controller. So dropping Corpse Explosion for Bone Prison makes a lot of sense, and it gives us the same or even better essence generation while also giving us an additional source of vulnerable. And this also frees up more points for additional passive skills. Now playing this on controller is clunky, so if you're on controller or you're on console, then stick with the standard build, because it's easy to trap yourself accidentally within your own bone prison or just miss target it on the wrong group of enemies. Now once we've acquired the resource aspect of Torment, the resource aspect of the Umbral, and the splintering offensive aspect, this version of the build becomes a potentially stronger version. This also sets us up to use some incredible crowd control and essence generation using the offensive aspect of Plunging Darkness in the early endgame. Alright, now let's break down the skill points per level for this version of the build. At level 2, we take Bone Splinters. Level 3, Enhanced Bone Splinters. Level 4, Bone Spear. Level 5, Enhanced Bone Spear. Level 6, Supernatural Bone Spear. Level 7, 1 more point into Bone Spear. Level 8, Blood Mist. Level 9, Bone Prison. Level 10, Enhanced Bone Prison. Level 11, Ghastly Bone Prison. Level 12, 13, and 14, we max out Bone Spear. Level 15, Unliving Energy, 1 point. Level 16, 17, and 18, we max out Imperfectly Balanced. Level 19 is Corpse Tendrils. Level 20, Enhanced Corpse Tendrils. 21 is Plagued Corpse Tendrils. 22, 23, and 24 is Serration. 25, 26, 27 is Compound Fracture. 28, 29, and 30 is Evulsion. Level 31, 1 point into Standalone. Level 32, 33, 34, Memento Mori. Level 35, our key passive, Ossified Essence. Don't miss this one. Level 36, Bone Storm. Level 37, Prime Bone Storm. Level 38, Supreme Bone Storm. Level 39 and 40, we're going to go ahead and finish out Standalone. 41 and 42, Unliving Energy. 43, 44, 45, Death's Reach. 46, Corpse Tendrils. 47, 48, and 49, Rapid Ossification. And at level 50, Paragon Begins. We also have a slightly different Renown schedule here for this build as well. So at Renown number 1, 2, and 3, we're going to take Death's Embrace. Renown 4 is Blight. Again, this is for the offensive aspect of Plunging Darkness. Renown 5 is Enhanced Blight. Renown 6 is Paranormal Blight. Renown 7, Reaper's Pursuit. Renown 8 through 10, Crippling Darkness. Now let's talk about the gameplay for Bone Prison just for a second. Now at first glance, Bone Prison appears to be a poor skill choice, and in any other build, it probably is. But actually, it supports this particular build quite well. The extra essence is essentially free, and the guaranteed vulnerable will allow us to set up triggers for other vulnerable effects and guarantee that for our initial engagement. The health of the prison itself isn't actually too important because having Bone Prison there alone does a good job just messing up the AI of many enemies, and that gives you precious time to cast a Bone Spear or retreat to a safe location. The other thing to keep in mind here is that there's an incredible combination between Corpse Tendrils and between Bone Prison. So what you'll do is you'll actually cast Corpse Tendrils, group all the enemies up into one spot, and then immediately cast Bone Prison on them. That should, even if you have 0 essence, that should fill your essence all the way up to the top. Then you can just pummel them with tons of Bone Spears. Maybe 1 or 2 sometimes will be enough to just kill the whole group, and then move on to the next one. All right, now let's talk about Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead gives us access to Raise Skeleton and the Golem's skills, which let us summon our hordes of undead minions to fight by our side. We can also elect to sacrifice these minions, gaining a unique passive bonus for each type we choose to sacrifice. You can mix and match which ones to summon versus sacrifice, with any combination being viable for different builds. I want to be clear here that if you actually take Raise Skeleton and Golem off of your bar, your summons will instantly die, so they have to be on your bar to function correctly. Now you can summon skeletons as early as level 1 with the ability to customize your skeletal skirmishers starting at level 5, and that's when the Book of the Dead menu will unlock. You can see this as sort of like a new tab in your inventory at level 5. From there, you can unlock more types of skeletal warriors, skeletal mages, and eventually golems as you gain levels. The golem requires that you complete a quest, and you can see that on our Book of the Dead guide over on Maxroll. You must put the Raise Skeleton and Golem skills on your skill bar in order to summon them. Now, skeletons and our golem, our primary use primarily useful for sacrifice with this build, but we don't do this right away. Now, which skeletons and golems to choose and ultimately when to sacrifice them goes as so. At level 1, use Raise Skeleton. Level 5, use your Skeletal Warriors Skirmishers. At level 8, we're going to sacrifice Skeletal Warriors Skirmishers. At level 15, we'll sacrifice our Skeletal Mages Cold. At level 25, we're going to use the Bone Golem. And then at level 32, we're going to sacrifice the Iron Golem. All right, now it's time to get into gear progression and global stat priorities. Now, leveling up in Diablo 4 is pretty similar to most other ARPGs and MMOs. We're really at the mercy of what drops. For the most part, this means that replacing rares with better rares all the way up to 50 is the way we go. We'll also prioritize certain specific Codex of Power legendary aspects for imprinting. If you're lucky enough to find some legendaries or uniques, they can provide a significant power boost. First, let's take a look at weapons. Now, the Maxroll Necromancer specializes in constant critical strikes. So ignoring every other weapon type and picking up a two-handed sword is really the way to go, because two-handed swords give an implicit critical strike damage. We're also going to prioritize these affixes: core skill damage, vulnerable damage, critical strike damage with bone skills, damage to distant enemies, damage to crowd control enemies, damage to slowed enemies, and stunned enemies. If you have sockets in your weapon, we're gonna socket that with emeralds. Also, don't forget to upgrade your weapon at the blacksmith 1 to 2 times as you level, because you're gonna be replacing this weapon all the time. Now, armor typically grants us defense and utility stats, except for the gloves, which offer a multitude of offensive options. So here are the important stats to look for. On helms, we want to look for bone spear ranks, intelligence, maximum life, and resistances. On armor, we want that maximum life, total armor, and damage reduction. On gloves, bone spear ranks, critical strike chance, attack speed, damage, intelligence. Pants, maximum life, intelligence, and damage reduction. Boots, we want movement speed, we want corpse tendrils ranks, and really important, this one is super important, we want the implicit movement speed on evade. If you have a pair of boots, by the way, that has that implicit, and you have a green number telling you to upgrade your boots that doesn't have the implicit, you might want to really think twice. That extra movement speed is super important on Necromancer. Now, jewelry provides powerful offensive stats to help us on our leveling journey. Pay close attention to the rolls, as higher leveled pieces aren't always better. On the amulet, we want to make sure we get damage, all stats, maybe bone spear skill ranks, damage reduction, and critical strike chance. On rings, vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, physical damage, and really importantly, maximum essence. And this can really help with this build. Now, while you're leveling, don't upgrade your armor and your jewelry. Now, that sounds strange, but it's kind of a waste of resources, because you're upgrading and you're swapping out your armor and your jewelry all the time. Maybe the exception here is hardcore, because you might go a little bit more slowly. You might want to really maximize your survivability, but really try to save your gold. It's important. Socketing armor with rubies for extra life is going to help your survivability quite a bit, and jewelry with diamonds for all resistances is going to help too. Now let's go into the Codex of Power. The Codex of Power is a collection of legendary aspects that you can imprint onto rare or legendary items at the Occultist. Now, they unlock after completing specific dungeons located around Sanctuary. For leveling, there are a few aspects that can significantly help us if we have the funds to imprint them. So first up, the resource aspect of Torment. This is located in Black Asylum in Fractured Peaks. It's probably the first one that you're going to encounter early on, and this can help with early resource regeneration from your bone skills. Next is the resource aspect of the Umbral. You can find this in Champion's Demise in Dry Steppes. This will refill our essence anytime that we cause any crowd control effect, and this is especially useful for corpse tendrils. Third is the splintering offensive aspect. This one is absolutely critical for dealing damage with this build. You'll find this in the Ghoul Run slums in Dry Steppes. This is our main way of doing damage, and this makes the entire screen vulnerable when we cast Bone Spear. This is really super strong. I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure you pick this one up. Now, quick warning here is don't imprint your weapons, as they're constantly going to be replaced as you level, and they're pretty expensive to imprint. Put your offensive aspects on your amulet or on your gloves instead, and that's going to save you a pretty coin. Now here's a few generic leveling tips and tricks if you're new to Diablo 4. First, you want to make sure that you're leveling up your potion. Many players still don't know that you need to farm materials to upgrade your character's potion. Make sure you collect all the materials as you explore Sanctuary, especially Galavine, which is used in many different recipes. Make sure you're comparing your items. Press Shift over an item in your inventory, or I believe it's Y on controller, to compare what you're wearing. This is going to make it easy to determine what is and isn't an upgrade. Generally, green means good here. Renown is your friend. While exploring the different zones, it takes some time to sort of gather the renown that is there along the way. It has long-term benefits for your entire account, including more skill and Paragon points and potion charges. Now, renown is gained by activating waypoints, finding altars of Lilith, completing side quests, completing dungeons for the first completion, and liberating strongholds. Now, finally, be careful with gold. A lot of the endgame processes, like extracting and imprinting legendary aspects, are extremely expensive for brand new characters. Make sure you don't spend all your gold along the way. All right, now let's wrap up the build with a quick summary. First, the Bone Spear Necromancer specializes in single target damage, and you can quickly annihilate enemies when their back is against a wall. Second, keep your essence high so that Serration and Ossified Essence can function at peak capacity. The resource aspect of Torment, the resource aspect of the Umbral, the splintering offensive aspect are really key for ensuring that this build achieves its true potential. And finally, fourth, we start off with a few skeletons, but we're going to quickly sacrifice them. With this build, where we're going alone. Thanks for watching. If detailed information like this interests you, then please subscribe. Also, let me know down in the comments which build that you're going to be running at launch. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.